I don't want to be warm and energized and engaging and inviting into a little world. I don't have that in me today. Yet it's a part of the job, and this is a conundrum. Like
Mhm.
one can feel like that.
Our podcast is all about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new Mother Mother record, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So tell me, first of all, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Campbell River on Vancouver Island, BC, and I
Okay.
was raised on a small island close to there, a 10-minute ferry ride from where I was born on Quadra Island.
Wow. What was it like growing up on an island? That must have been interesting.
Yeah, I think, in retrospect, very interesting. But at the time, it was normalcy. And, it wasn't totally remote or secluded or lacking amenities or anything like that. It was
Sure.
quite functional.
Was it hard? I mean, like, how many people were on the island? Do you remember? Like, how many people there? Like the population?
About 3,000.
Okay, so not very big, to be honest. I
Oh.
mean,
But you catch a ferry that takes 10 minutes, that takes you to town, and then that has like 40,000 people.
oh, okay.
And that's where you go to high school. So I'd catch a ferry to high school, to and fro for 6 years. But there's an elementary school on the island, so it's kind of a big day when you graduate grade six, and then you have to take the ferry to,
Oh, I
the
bet.
world opens up. Yeah.
Wow, wow. Is it like how does the ferry work? Are you just on with everybody else? Like people going to
Yeah.
work and so it's
Yeah.
not like they have a specific ferry that's just taking like a school ferry.
I felt bad for just the regular folks catching the ferry with, the throngs of crazy kids.
All the teenagers going to high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really interesting. Well, how did you get into music?
I mean, I think I just loved it as soon as I discovered it, from a very early age. Music always really moved me and made me feel, the best out of any, tangible experience. And so it was, an obvious next step to try and engage with the stuff via an instrument. And took piano lessons and guitar lessons, and yes, I never left it.
Hmm. How old were you when you started taking lessons? Was it piano first and then guitar or?
It was recorder first. I took recorder
Oh,
probably
okay.
when I was like 5, and then piano lessons when I was, shortly thereafter, and then guitar lessons at 10. And then when I moved to Vancouver at 20 years old, I enrolled in a jazz guitar program.
Oh, did you go to school for jazz guitar or was it just okay? What about like cuz your sister's also, a musician. She's in the band with you. Did you guys like play together early on? Like was she taking lessons around the same time as you? Like what was that like?
It's sort of like kind of mandatory piano lessons. We all took them, but she wasn't necessarily the obvious musician in the family. She was more of an artist, a graphic artist, a painter, and that's kind of where she traveled to in her schooling. And when we connected as young adults here in Vancouver, she was in fact going to Capilano, which is a graphic arts college, and I was going to music, and we were living in the same house. And I mean, the fact that we started a band was almost preposterous because we didn't have any musical history as collaborators. Um, but she has such an interesting speaking voice, and I knew that it would translate to amazing harmony singing. I knew in my gut that she would make any song sound better.
Hmm.
And so, I was like, hey, just try singing on these songs that I'm writing, and let's go to an open mic. And she was pretty reluctant because she's super shy and it wasn't her milieu.
Yeah,
But
was it
we,
hard to convince her to like, break out of that? I can imagine that'd be kind of hard. Like, hey, you sound good. Like, you should sing with me. Let's go to an open mic night.
I think she's just so accommodating and so generous that she was just going to humor me. But
Okay.
then probably didn't expect that it would find its legs so quickly and with such momentum that she wouldn't be able to say no, because when something starts to become fortuitous, it's hard to say no to it.
Sure. How did you like what started rolling? Like what really got you guys to start Mother Mother and like got the band progressing? Was there a moment that happened? Do you remember?
Kind of a series of moments. You know, it was all just kind of like serendipitous and synchronistic in the early days. Like we'd play an open mic, and someone in the audience would be from CBC, the radio station, and then they would give us a slot on the morning show, and then someone who
Oh
was listening
wow.
to the morning show liked what they heard and gave us a great festival slot, and someone from there knew a guy from a label, and so it just seemed like it was a waterfall of these opportune synchronistic events within the first year that really transformed the band quickly into quite a professional unit. Like before long, we had a record deal and we're touring the country, and we barely were used to the idea of ourselves as a band. So it happened fast in the early days.
Wow, that's incredible to get like that quickly get a morning radio slot. I did radio for 16 years, so I know how hard it is for them to let you in the door like that, especially like put you on the air and then quickly get festivals and a record deal. What was it like? Was it overwhelming to kind of have that success so fast?
I think it was just really exciting
Okay.
and gratifying. And I think the thing that I found overwhelming and really challenging at the beginning was speaking on behalf of the music and the project, and I guess the interview context,
Hmm.
and feeling like you had to have some kind of persona in tow with the music. That just kind of rattled me. I didn't know how to accommodate that concept.
Hmm.
Uh, but I've since learned that you don't. You just be yourself.
Sure. Yeah, isn't that like the hardest thing? Is just just be yourself. You're like, well, like what's myself? I remember doing like when I first started in radio. That's what they would always tell you. Like, stop trying to act. You're not this person. That person's already that person. Just be yourself. And it's like the hardest thing to really like break through all that.
I
I mean,
know.
I can't imagine like you're in a band and then they're like, oh, we want to interview for this, and you're gonna play this. Like, wow, that's a lot of
I did.
attention.
I remember like my voice would shake, um, and it was a painful experience every time. I hated it,
Hmm.
and I put so much pressure on myself to come off well that I came off poorly.
Sure. Yeah, it's almost like you're overthinking it.
Oh, totally. Thinking is the death of connection and in the moment expression. You have to feel your expressions through. You can't think them through.
I like that. I've never heard that before. That's a great way to put it. So what out? So Torch Up, that was the first, or Touch Up was the first record that came out. And was that out around the time when you guys were doing these big things with the radio, or is it all just demos? Or tell me about that.
Yeah, Touch Up, it was originally a self-titled album that we made ourselves and put out ourselves in 2005. But then that wound up on the desk of someone from a label called Last Gang in Toronto, and they reached out to us and they wanted to re-release it. So we added two songs. We changed our name from Mother to Mother Mother. We refurbished the artwork. We called it something Touch Up, and then we re-released it in 2007.
Oh, interesting. And then did you tour the record like it was like a new record, or like how'd you approach it?
Exactly. We toured it like it was a new record.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And then I'm sure you were getting bigger shows at that point as with
I
the
mean,
label. Like, did they help you a bit with that, or like what was the difference?
they hooked us up with a booking agent, and I mean, but it's just starting at the bottom, really. Like, you know, touring across Canada in the winter to virtually no one many times before you start to build a fan base, and things happen along the way that help that growth, like getting a song on commercial radio. That can really get
Mhm.
people out to the show. That was a big boon for us, is getting on the radio in Canada.
When was that? When did that happen for you? Like, do you remember hearing your song on the radio the first time?
Well, our first inroad to commercial radio was our sophomore album, and that
Okay.
was a song called Body of Years, and I think it peaked at number 8 in Canada, uh,
Wow.
which was great for us. And then the next record, the third record, we had a song chart at 3, and that was awesome. And then it wasn't until our fifth record that we got our first number 1. Um, so it's been a journey, just
Sure.
that relationship with radio.
Hmm. Was that Very Bad Thing when you got the number one slot?
No, very good,
Oh,
bad thing.
oh, Very Good Bad Thing. It was before that, The Sticks.
No, this it wasn't until our fifth album, No Culture,
Oh, wow.
with a song called The Drugs, that we got our first number 1.
Oh, interesting. And then you at that point you had to jump to a major label too, right?
That's right.
What
Yeah.
was that? What was that like? I mean, going from an indie to like a big record label, the big, the big.
Yeah, no, I mean, we just kind of did our thing. We kind of just made the records we wanted to make. There was more people. It was like a bigger company. So there was maybe more infiltration. Um, but yeah, it was cool.
But you didn't feel like it was much different than it wasn't like, okay, we're gonna make you do this or that or the other thing. It was you still had all total
Honestly,
control and do what you were doing.
yeah, ultimately. And the indie label was just as ASCII about making hits as
Sure.
the label, if not more sometimes. Like those guys were totally like, hey, like your demos are cool, but could you please try and write something that would fit radio better? Like, I think it's a myth that indie people don't care about that stuff.
Okay.
I think everybody cares about that stuff because everybody wants to succeed.
Everybody wants to sell records, right?
Yeah.
Would you say like putting that first record, the first record you did with Universal was that was Very Good Bad Thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When you signed that deal and now you're on a major, did you get on bigger? Did they put you on like a sports slot on like a big tour, or what would you say like the milestone of now being on a big record label would be?
There wasn't too many big milestones that accompanied that advent. Uh,
Okay.
and that record itself wasn't our most successful record,
Hmm.
for whatever reason. I think, the writing wasn't as cohesive on that record. Um, and it was just another brick in the wall, that record. It wasn't like we signed a major label deal and we made this commercial record and everything changed. It wasn't like that. In fact, it's never really been like that up until this past year. It's just been incremental success and small wins that amount to a slow growth
Hmm.
for the past 16 years. But then it was 2020 when something more in the vein of miraculous and suddenly transformational occurred.
And what would you say that moment was?
That was the TikTok zeitgeist, early Mother songs
Uh-huh.
exploding internationally, um, inexplicably.
Well, that's so. Did you guys like? How did that? Like, how did you even get that news? Were you guys on the app, or like, was it just something that kind of came out of left field for you?
Well, it catalyzed a jacking up in streams
Sure.
on the other platforms, which you're always monitoring. So
Right.
if on a Thursday in an off cycle when you haven't released music in 6 months, you notice that Spotify is cranking up. You're like, something peculiar is going on, and we must find out. And so you start to investigate, and you trace it back to this app called TikTok, which you know nothing about, which you're prompted to make an account and investigate. And so
Sure.
I did, I did all these things, and lo and behold, there was just like, a cornucopia of young people making videos to early Mother songs in their bedrooms. And it was almost like staring into like I don't know, like a Twilight Zone alternate reality.
Yeah,
Didn't feel like my band.
that's so weird. I mean, do you know how it all started? Like, did you get to the root of the cause? Like, Was there a particular person that started doing it and then it kind of like, you know, dominoed from there?
I mean, yeah, there's no patient zero.
That's what I was wondering. There wasn't.
I think there's a case to be made that it resonated with the anime and the cosplay
Sure.
community. And there's probably figures within that community that have reach. Um, and they would make videos and that would proliferate the music. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
That's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
would you ever in a million years assume that that would happen? I mean, something like or old songs from old records that are just going like going nuts.
You know, like, no, not in a million years. But at the same time, you got a dream in this business.
Hmm.
You can't let go of that part of you that believes in magic, that believes something crazy can happen. And I've never let go of that. You know,
Hmm.
as you get older and it's like time goes by and you make 8 records and you go, huh, is a crazy cool magical thing going to happen? Because it hasn't yet. I mean, this has been amazing. Like we've been able to create a functioning career and like pay the bills. Um, but it wasn't a byproduct of the miraculous or like these stratospheric synchronistic gifts from the
Sure.
universe like that you hear about. It was just like hard work and making the best music you could and never stopping. That's how we got to where we got.
Hmm.
But then this thing happened. It's like, oh yeah, cool. I'm happy I stayed in the dreamscape all the while because I think you kind of create what you believe in. That whole kind of law of attraction philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic that it happened because I'll see or I'll talk to a lot of artists that'll have a TikTok hit, right? And then they're like 18, 19 years old. And it's like right out the gate, they have this song that does a dance move or whatever. And then it's like now all eyes are on you. It's like, well, now what are you gonna do? It's like you have 8 records of proof that you guys are, a band that has done really well for yourself prior to the whole TikTok phenomenon like really happening for you.
Yeah, it couldn't have happened at a better time for a multitude of reasons. Yeah, we have all this music to offer,
Mm-hmm.
and also we're just really leveled out as people.
Yeah,
Like
you're not like, yeah, exactly. It's not all, you're not really green to the whole thing. It's like you've
we're
done
not,
doing this for a long time.
yeah, we're calm, we're healthy, we're humble, we get it. Um, I'm so grateful this didn't happen to my like 25 or 30-year-old self.
Sure. Yeah. I can imagine that too. That would be a struggle, I would bet.
My 30-year-old self.
So this thing's happening, and like, this is all during when lockdown happened? Because that's kind of when the app really exploded.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, where were you guys at right before this whole thing happened?
COVID or the
Yeah, yeah, both. I mean, COVID. Were you guys working on? Did you have a record out that you're touring, and you got kind of stopped in your tracks, or?
totally at the end of an album cycle,
Okay.
and so of the last record, and we were kind of like, what do we do with this year? We're maybe a little tired, or a little curious about just stretching out and maybe taking a bit of a break, like just a little hiatus. I think we were contemplating not making a record in 2020,
Interesting.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just pushing the cycle by a year. But then the pandemic struck, and it was like there's nothing else to do, and it just seemed really prudent and logical to make a record during 2020 and then have something prepared to promote and to work when the world opened up.
So it was a kind of it wasn't it didn't have anything to do with like, okay, this TikTok thing's happening. We should probably,
No,
try to put on some new music.
we were the record was written before we really were enlightened to this.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So when did you guys start writing the record?
February 2020.
Oh, okay. So
And
before everything, not everything hadn't like fully
yeah,
cracked down yet.
yeah, we didn't really understand the magnitude until like August,
Okay.
by which point we were almost done in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you guys were able to pretty much work on the whole record the throughout the beginning of the whole pandemic.
Yeah, and it was nice that we didn't know about all this stuff because I don't that maybe would have added a pressure on the creative process to recreate a magic that worked,
Uh-huh.
that was, proving successful. It's always like the kiss of death when you you make a record that does well and then, you're pressured to recreate that success by writing similar songs. It never works.
Yeah, so you didn't feel like you had that pressure.
Because I was ignorant to what was going on. To me,
Oh,
I was
sure.
making another record in my little life, in my little sphere that was the career that I had gotten used to.
Hmm. Do you
And
feel
so,
like that would have affected the album knowing what was going on TikTok?
yeah, for sure. It would have been like shit. I don't think I would have thought like, okay, I better write some songs like that. It would have been like, how do I transcend the mental um, notion that I should and not. Like, how do I transcend that pressure and write something authentic to now? I think that would have been the challenge.
Sure. Right. Trying to
Trying to not,
not do it.
yeah,
Right. And then always like subconsciously thinking like, is this gonna sound too much like what's happening on TikTok?
exactly.
Wow. That's interesting. I mean, that's incredible that you really didn't have that, right? I mean, if you had the app and then so was the record done completely before you noticed what was happening on TikTok?
No, so we finished recording in August is when we really became aware of this. And then we were mixing and editing and finalizing for a good 3 months after that. And it was during those 3 months of wrapping the record up that we were really connecting to this TikTok thing and like making posts and getting some great press and sort of celebrating this transformational energy as we were wrapping up a record. It was a good time.
Hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, were you that just having that like viral moment like that? Just kind of was your, I mean, once you sign into TikTok, was your phone just like going crazy? Like, I mean, what was it like, kind of seeing this like in real time?
Um, very, very ad- addicting and intoxicating. It's seducing, I would say. Yeah, you're seduced by um, the spectacle, like the activity, and watching it proliferate at a fast speed. Um, you kind of had to check yourself.
Yeah. That's I can imagine. Yeah, not being like, okay, I gotta go check how many views this has. Like,
I
because
was,
you could
I was
it,
checking all day, just more because I was just sort of fascinated. It wasn't like, oh wow, like I'm so great, or like I'm like success thirsty. It wasn't like that. I was just sort of like really bewildered, and so you kind of want to watch something that's fascinating. That's
Mhm.
human nature, I think, and that's kind of what drew me to it.
Yeah, it's almost like the lottery, I feel like. You're if you're playing a slot machine, you're like, "Oh my gosh, like now I'm like it's going up. Like I you could totally get like sucked into that world. I can see that happening really quick. Even I'm sure everybody would have that same exact feeling and action. Like, "Oh my gosh, like this is really going. Like this is so bizarre. Like this is so awesome."
Yeah,
Like,
I think I think one has to permit like a bit of indulgence in partaking or watching or getting to know something, but you have to be very wary not to identify as that thing. Like, I wasn't like watching this happening and going, this is a reflection of me or us.
right.
This does not equate to worth. This does not equate to greatness. This is just an energy, that is of a mind of its own, that is born from songs that were written um, some time ago, and isn't life strange? It was more like that.
Yeah, and it's like something to be said that, like I said, that you had been doing this for a long time and you had success. So it wasn't something that you guys didn't work for, like, or like that's something that just kind of happened out of nowhere, in a
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, it's just nice that we stayed working because we can greet it, as a refined operation. We're stage ready. Um, we're ready to go because we haven't stopped.
Hmm.
So, I think a lot of bands probably would have broken up by now because 16 years is a long time to stay together without pause.
Hmm.
Um, because you get older and you want to diversify and whatnot. But for whatever reason, we just kept on.
And you said that even the pandemic kind of, you guys were like gonna, take a break and kind of take some time for this current record anyway, right?
Yeah, like it was kind of supposed to be our self reflection year,
Hmm.
but it just
And
turned into another like let's get her done, let's make a record.
yeah.
And then the thing happened, and now the career is like on warp speed, and we have to do more work than we've ever done. Um, Whereas we probably were prone to assume that things were gonna slow, or just like I don't know, the band was gonna enter into its like I don't know middle age, for lack of a better metaphor, you know.
Uh-huh.
But now it's sort of like in its adolescence again.
Right. Now you're back and you have to kind of ride this thing out with
Yeah, we got to
all
work
these new
harder.
eyes.
We got to work harder than we've ever worked, and play more in one year than we've ever played, and do more. Like all of it is more demanding,
Hmm.
which is just so surprising because like you just I don't know that's not the natural life cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And having to adapt now to not only do you have to put out a rad record and do a tour, but now you have to be like active on all these social media apps. I mean, it's just the
That's
whole
probably the
game has
biggest.
changed.
That's the biggest energy suck, I think, is just like, yeah, social media is so demanding these days, and you kind of need to be really personable, and it's just as much about personality as it is about music,
Hmm.
um, which is ironic too, because I think creative people are, typically insular and
Right.
introverted and not necessarily eager to be a TV personality. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
part
Go ahead.
part of what makes for good music is shutting out the world and going into the darkness, and digging in deep. um and so it's ironic that the polar opposite is such a crucial aspect to the promotion of said music.
Hmm. And it goes back to what you were saying with even those early interviews, like trying to be yourself, having to be yourself and online and having to do these little videos like, oh, hey, like I've got this going on. Like it's just totally a different world. It's almost like you're doing your own interviews constantly and trying to keep people engaged and up to date with what you're doing because everyone loves that behind the curtain look. That's, I think, why TikTok became so fascinating to people. It's like, oh, this is what Ryan's doing from Mother he's just hanging out at his house, or you know what I mean. It's like this whole different light and different way of seeing some of your favorite artists.
Yeah, and because there's no filter, like an icky vibe is so easily detectable.
Oh yeah, if you're not authentic, people can find that out real
Yeah.
quick.
Or if you're just off, and like if it just doesn't feel right, and we're only human, and quite often you don't feel presentable on a given day,
Sure.
day that you're supposed to make a TikTok.
Right.
Like I don't want to be warm and energized and engaging and inviting into a little world. I don't have that in me today. Yet it's a part of the job, and this is a conundrum. Like one
Mhm.
one can feel like that.
Yeah, you just got to turn it on. Unfortunately, you got to turn it on today. You got to do your TikTok video. The world is waiting. So the record's out. It just came out on Friday. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's good to get her out there, let it go,
Yeah.
stop manhandling it.
Once it's out there in the world, is it kind of like a big like, okay, thank God, like now I don't have to worry about like changing a mix, or like do you, before it goes out, do you listen to it a bunch of times and like think, okay, I got to go change this, or I want to go tinker with this, or is it like you don't listen to it until it's out?
There's much tinkering. Uh, I'm a tweaker. That's the joke. Is oh Ryan's tweaking again.
Okay.
Like by half a dB, or like turning down S's, turning up S's, lining up consonants. I'm such a tweaker.
So
So it's good that that's done. That door is closed.
right, that no, looking back now, it's out. You can't do much about it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's good to see that you guys have some dates, especially I know Canada was rough as far as like the pandemic went for a while. I mean, I don't know if it's still as locked down as it was, or if you leave the country, you've got to like quarantine in a hotel and go
Yeah.
home, and they're going to check up on you. And it looks like you have a lot of tour dates scheduled.
Yep. Yeah, it's a pretty full year, chalking up to be.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you guys had a chance to play yet?
Um, no, we got the band back together just for the one James Corden thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time we'd played a song together in over a year.
Wow.
Because even the record, we didn't all get together in one room and play any given song off the new record. So
Really?
it was all piecemeal.
Interesting. Was
Yeah.
that the first time you've ever done a record like that?
Um, that was the most fragmented,
Sure.
but we've done, we've definitely indulged in the technology of multi-tracking when making records.
Okay. You guys are on a lot of awesome festivals. I mean, the Ride Fest lineup this year, I'm just like so excited for.
I know the Pixies. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. And Pixies, Nine Inch Nails, and Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, it's pretty. Not only that, I mean, there's a million other rad bands on it, but that's pretty cool. Pretty cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, like those are the type of festival bills that we would never play. Like that you'd see like on Instagram, when they like the poster comes out,
All right.
it's just like, wish we could play something like that one day. I just remember having that feeling like 100,000 times over the past, decade plus, seeing those posters. It's so cool to be on one. It's surreal.
Well, you're on a few. I mean, right? Not
Yeah,
only the Ride Fest. I mean, so this is all new ground for you guys as far as these festivals go.
whole different sport.
It's exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. Yeah,
That's good.
um,
You think it'll
surreal.
be interesting to adapt to that kind of environment, or
I mean, gosh, we played a million shows. I think we're ready.
I think so.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. I love the conversation.
I do have one more question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, definitely. Do make stuff that really excites you. That should be your barometer. Like, are you giving yourself goosebumps? Are you stirring your own soul? That should be the only, you know, marker of success you should be caring about. Because if you can do that to yourself, then that will evoke the same response in other people. Um, it's only when I've pursued my own happiness through my own work that the success that matters has come from. Whenever I've tried to please other people or do things for more superficial reasons creatively, not only does it not feel as good, it doesn't do as well. So, yeah, be true to yourself and get yourself good and stoked on what you're creating before anybody else, and work hard. Like be creative every day, and and it's a muscle, it's a relationship, and if you take long breaks, it falls into dormancy. So just be so incredibly frequent with your connection with whatever your medium is.
Bringing it backward.